What do you think that these executives are afraid you're going to do to white America?
Probably stop some racism.
Stop racism?
Yeah. I'm probably afraid of that, because then people don't hate each other, and people start talking to each other, and then they start talking to each other, they find out who's the problem.
Which is?
Greedy people.
Greedy people. I have a couple things I want to ask you there. Do you really think that some of the guys that you've dealt with at NBC, no names, right? Because there's lawsuits for that too, that some of these guys really want to promote racism actively, or is it a subconscious?
I just think it's part of capitalism, is to promote racism, you know, right? In order to make things work. If you feel better because you're white and you can get a job, you use that. I mean, you know, I would.
Absolutely.
Say, I'm sorry, Jack, but shit, they say I'm white. I'm going to use this.
Right. Absolutely.
Get this job. I'm hungry, you know. But and that separates people. So they keep people separated, and that keeps them from thinking about the real problem. That's as simple as I see it. Probably it's not that simple, but.
Now, all right. You and I are about the same age, right? We're in our mid-30s. How long is it going to take before guys who think like you, and I say guys who think like me, people who don't want to have racism in the country, people who don't want to be oppressing any minority, whatever it is, sexual, whatever minority, really get into positions of power and can change things?
You can't get in a position of power, it seems, if you think like that. It seems that the only time you get in a position of power is if you like the people that are in power. To me, I mean, that's the way it goes. I mean, people that get to become executives become like the people that were already executives.
I don't know, maybe...
They go in with good intentions, but it eats them up. It's like a cesspool, you know, it just gets on you and it starts eating.
The system levels them.
Pretty soon it's all gone.
Is that what a cesspool sounds like?
Yes.
Greetings YouTube, and welcome to The Lounge, Part 1. So last night, while I was doing food for thought, I got petty and reiterated the Christmas party story that I told earlier on my live cast yesterday. Mrs. Autonomist heard me going on the rant, and so this morning we were both making coffee and making lunches for the girls. She herself was moaning about going in tonight for her office party. She was like, you know, while I know an antisocial curmudgeon like yourself hates stuff like that, not everyone has it like us, where we have a 16-year-old who can babysit, and then if she can't do it, we can afford to hire babysitters for the youngest so we can go out and do stuff. Like for some of your coworkers, this was probably the only few times in a year they could really just dress and hang out and just have food, that they didn't have to rush home and cook. So you should like cut people a fucking break, man. So I thought about it and I was like, yeah, I was kind of a dick. But she's used to me being that way. So for the record, I didn't think about that side of it for my coworkers or for anyone else who might have been listening last night. But that's why we're here, right? To learn from others, be they our loved ones, friends, strangers, or even our enemies. Okay.
On Friday, January 20th, 2017, Donald Trump will be inaugurated as President of the United States. We call on all people of good conscience to join in disrupting the ceremonies. If Trump is to be inaugurated at all, let it happen behind closed doors, showing the true face of the security state Trump will preside over. It must be made clear to the whole world that the vast majority of people in the United States do not support his presidency or consent to his rule. Trump stands for tyranny, greed, and misogyny. He is the champion of neo-Nazis and white nationalists, of the police who kill the black, brown and poor on a daily basis, of racist border agents and sadistic prison guards, of the FBI and NSA who tap your phone and read your email. He is the harbinger of even more climate catastrophe, deportation, discrimination, and endless war. He continues to deny the existence of climate change, in spite of all the evidence, putting the future of the whole human race at stake. The KKK, Vladimir Putin, Golden Dawn, and the Islamic State all cheered his victory. If we let his inauguration go unchallenged, we are opening the door to the future they envision. Trump's success confirms the bankruptcy of representative democracy. Rather than using the democratic process as an alibi for inaction, we must show that no election could legitimize his agenda. Neither the Democrats nor any other political party or politician will save us. They just offer a weaker version of the same thing. If there is going to be positive change in this society, we have to make it ourselves, together, through direct action. From day one, the Trump presidency will be a disaster. Disrupt J20 will be the start of the resistance. We must take to the streets and protest, blockade, disrupt, intervene, sit in, walk out, rise up, and make more noise and good trouble than the establishment can bear. The parade must be stopped. We must delegitimize Trump and all he represents. It's time to defend ourselves, our loved ones, and the world that sustains us as if our lives depend on it. Because they do. Thousands will converge and demonstrate resistance to the Trump regime. Save the date. Our allegiance is not to making America great again, but to all of humanity and the planet. Spread the word. Join the fight. Disrupt J20.
One of the first jobs I had when we moved up here from Houston was that I was a technology project manager for a nonprofit organization. I would set up projects such as lab building, tech assessments, network setups, computer repairs at nonprofits like family shelters, women's shelters, or community centers or schools. And people who were in the IT field professionally would lead these projects as volunteers and do the work. The organization I worked for at the time would have this annual citywide volunteer campaign where we would do projects in schools or some of the larger sites. On the technology projects end, we basically did light maintenance in the school computer labs, rewiring, anything that would take us about a full day to do and where we could be of actual help. Now, I had several sites doing projects that one day, but the way it would work, we could pick one site to stay at for the entire day. On the other side of what the organization did, they would do community cleanup, paint jobs, and things like that. Or in the city parks, repainting park benches, cleaning, and then gardening. When my project at this particular school in East Harlem had finished early, I had no other sites to visit, so I walked across the street to the park where our organization also had a cleanup, gardening, and park bench project. Now, they had a shitload of volunteers. The group was diverse, and I'd still say predominantly Black and Latino. Then this tiny little guy came out of nowhere. I mean, he was almost invisible. He was so little, and he stood close enough to where we had no other choice but to notice him. And then he said, "Well, what y'all doing?" We were all surprised at first because it should have been pretty fucking obvious. The team leader of the park project just happened to have been a sister, and I only met her once, but she had been nominated by my then colleague over 5 years as her star team leader on these kinds of projects. Now, I knew the sister was in banking or something like that in terms of her on the professional side, but one look at the invisible man and I knew there was going to be some shit. "Well, these niggas around here don't need nothing good. Can't you see they done fucked up this part? They gonna mess up all this work y'all doing before the month is over." "Sir," the team leader said, "some of the people here are from around here, and a lot of the people are not. I myself live in New Jersey, but the point is, we volunteered to come here and do this work." "Well, y'all ain't cleaning up nothing," said the invisible man. "Y'all don't see how these women around here got all kinds of kids? All these young thugs will have these vials littering," he used the word littering, "your precious gardens like so many seeds from Johnny Appleseed's backpack." "Yeah, well, I ain't cleaning up shit." We all just stared at him at this point. Collectively, we had no way of responding to this man, who seemed to be making a rebellious stance. A stand from a rebellion that none of us were aware of. And it seemed to be a rebellion against a demand that none of us made on him. By this time, the white volunteers among us returned to their work with a deep and almost fanatic focus, maybe because of the use of the N-word was already making them feel uncomfortable. But the team leader inched closer to the little invisible man. "The key word, sir, is volunteer. You come if asked because you want to, and frankly, I don't see where anything you just said had anything to do with what we are doing here. So good day, sir. You may now go back to doing exactly what you've always been doing. Nothing. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was the end of the story. And shit, why did I tell that story? Oh yeah, I wanted to make a statement on the times you, the young activist, the community organizer, the volunteer, or just plain anybody wanting to do anything to make any kind of change or difference, even if it's some moderate liberal community work. There will always be the do-nothings. Some might begin to think differently when you explain to them what you are doing and why, but others like the smell and warm feeling of the load of shit that they just dropped in their own pants, and they want you and everyone else to suffer and smell it. I say, let them sit in it, carry out their invisible sit-in rebellion against humankind, and you should put your head down to it and keep doing what needs to be done. So anyway, until next week, drive home safely from the lounge.